Alright, another Do Not Guide video production on the Inmendham channel. Anyway, economic video, yes, I know none of you are interested. To your own detriment, I'd say, because you will get the truth here. You'll get the right answer, not the wrong answers, proposed by people like this. Full of wrong answers, full of a lot of arrogance. Just thinks everybody else is an idiot except for him, blah, 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 blah. Oh, they just don't understand all the special stuff I understand, blah, 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 blah. So he spends the first half of the video just doing that stuff. You're all too stupid to understand, and only a big-brained guy like me can follow all these little charts and get it all right. What a pile of crap. Anyway, I mean, a silly argument to make. You have to actually make arguments proving that, not just arguments. So anyway, totally unresponsive to my counter argument, so I'm going to make this video, because there's no point in leaving comments because he doesn't deal with the nice, concise comment. And it's just terribly rude. Anyway, so the subject is something called QE. Now, this is something that the system does when it's in trouble. All of a sudden, we have to quantitatively ease, and sometimes it takes the form of something called stimulus, you know, with a big S, stimulus package, where you're just saying, well, we have to get people more excited, so they're doing more buying and selling in the economy and get things rolling, kind of idea. But it's just injections, you know, something to inject movement in the economy. So we can keep doing this stock market go uppy thing is really all they're after, though. The whole thing's pretty much a lie. The only thing they're after is the stock market going up, because that makes the rich richer, blah, 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 blah. Makes them feel richer. Yeah, says so in the books. So anyway, so yes, this stuff comes up when there's a crisis. You got to do something about the crisis, because everything's going down, down, down. Employment, all this stuff goes down, and you need to do something to make it go back up again. So the idea was that there's different things they could do. There used to be interest rates. So what they would do is lower the interest rates, and that way they could create more lending, because people are more likely to borrow money if they don't have to pay as much to borrow it. And so more borrowed money means more money in the economy, more things, more people can get hired, more businesses can open, things can happen. And that's what they're after, is more people getting hired and more things happening. So, but they can't do that anymore, because now interest rates are practically 0%, and so you're dead. You can't use that anymore. That won't ever work ever again. There'll never be interest rates ever again. Well, not until after the crash. Because we can't afford them, because now everybody's debt would be way too expensive. Everybody go bankrupt, including the federal government. Alright, so we're back to this Federal Reserve. So they had a Federal Reserve trick they could use. So the banks, when they lend out all this money, you know, when they're, you know, lend out money, loan, 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 there's a certain amount of money they have to still have. They have to keep some money, okay, for people who need to get their money out of the bank. So they can't loan it all. They have to keep something in reserve. And so they call those reserve requirements. So you have some money, so everything is not in the form of an IOU here, right? You have to have some actual money. And so you could compare this to like movies like, or stories like Catch-22, you know, where the catch was is the reserve requirements got so low that, you know, the company, the corporation, put IOUs where the parachutes are supposed to be, right? So there's no parachute in the plane, because, you know, it just has an IOU in it, you know. So everything, morphine, you need morphine, if somebody's injured, oh, IOU, no more, no more for you, we sold that, we loaned it, you know, it's part of the enterprise now. Well, anyway, so, I mean, this is something everybody knows about. This goes in the movies, it's in everything, this whole racket, that you have to actually have some money in the bank if you're going to do banking. Well, anyway, so the reserve requirements used to be 100%. That is, you had to have like gold in your bank and be able to, so only the same amount of money could go in as go out. You could only lend money you actually had. Like if I was a rich guy, I could only lend money until I ran out of money, right? If I had $1 million and I lent it to two people, $500,000 each, that's it. I can't lend any more money because I don't have any more money. But the system realized lending is a good idea because it always works. As long as the guy pays back the loan, it's all good. So let's just sort of collateralize the loan. Let's just say that the collateral I got, right? So when I loaned the money, I didn't just give people money. I took in collateral. I took in the deed to their house, and I gave them the money. Well, that's collateralized. That's real money, essentially. I'm putting money back in the vault, right? So I took the money out and gave it to them. And I put another piece of paper in that said deed to the house. Well, the deed to the house is just as good as money. Come on, let's get real. Okay, it's just as good most of the time. So why not lend that? And so that's how these reserve requirements change. So you used to have 100%. That means you couldn't lend any more than you had. And then they said, oh, okay, it's okay to lend more. And then and it went down, went to like 50%. You know, you still had to have some collateral that wasn't lent out again. You had to keep some paper in the vault. And then it was, you know, anyway, so then went all the way down to 5%. And the game is that they kept lowering it, like they lowered the interest rates, right? From, you know, the interest rates could have been 10%, they lowered to 9% to get people to borrow more money. Well, the same thing happened with this. It goes so low where you can't make it much lower. But the idea would be is that if they want to stimulate lending, what they would do is tell the banks, okay, you don't have to have 5%, all you have to have is 4% of the good deeds. So as long as you have 4% of the paper still in the vault, you know, you didn't lend it again, where they'd say you're solvent enough and you're good enough. And so once they lower it, that means they can lend more money. And lending more money means, you know, making more money available, you know, means that the loans go for a lower price. And technically, right, if more people want to give somebody money, then they're going to bid down. Like somebody will say, I'll lend it to you for 6%. Another bank will say, I'll give it to you for 5.5%. Another one, I can name that tune for 3.2%. So the more loans available, the lower the price goes that you have to pay the loan back in, how much interest you got to pay. So lowering the reserve rate lowers, theoretically, the interest rate. So instead of paying 6%, you'll pay 5% because we lowered the reserve rate. Well, now they can't lower that, so that ain't gonna work. So, you know, these tools, this tool's gone. You can't do interest rates. You can't do reserve rates because you're already at the bottom. So what are you gonna do? Try to get more, to get the loaning rate higher. Well, first you have to have people that want to borrow money. You know, they can afford it. They don't already got a pile of debt, and they already got too much debt. They can't borrow any money because they already borrowed every loan they could get. They already got. Like Trump. So they can't borrow any more money because they already borrowed it all. Anyway, so the reserve, so the Federal Reserve, for all of its history, right? For all of the Federal Reserve's history, the amount of money in the Federal Reserve was this. Okay, so the bottom line is here, and it was pretty consistent amount. So from the 30s to the 40s to the 50s to the 60s to the 70s, all kind of a flat line. Then all of a sudden you get to 2009, all of a sudden, ooh, and not just a little bit up, but woo, you know, way up here. So they went from having 100 billion to having now, I think it's officially 6 trillion. Okay, 100 billion, 6 trillion. Huge difference. I mean, just monstrously different. All right, now if we look at the, well, it should do it just for the, you know, I'll take the QE out of here. I think you got the idea. This is about quantitative easing. All right, and so the other number you want to look at is the chart for cash in circulation. So the cash in circulation kind of just goes like that. Now, the truth is, you could say, well, population kind of went like that, and growth in the American economy kind of went like that. So cash is consistent with these other matrices that would say how much do you need to have cash because your population is increased, right? You got 400 billion people, million, and well, anyway, some number, and you know, the economy, you know, the industry, all this other stuff has grown. You know, that's sort of fake because a lot of that growth is just other things. Like the stock market growth has to do with pension money going in from other countries. I mean, like the Norwegians have their entire pension in the American stock market, which doesn't make much sense. You know, the whole idea of unions taking their pension money and putting it in the stock market is so ironic, right? Because the unions are fighting the man, you know, the man who wants to suppress them and control them and, you know, kill their union. And they're actually feeding off, you know, out of the same trough as the evil rich people, you know, with the fake money. I want to make money doing nothing. So this is what this really has to do with, right? I mean, the whole argument is between this idea that you can have a free lunch, that is, my house can go up in value, and I tripled my wealth by just owning my house. And it's win-win. Yeah, I win, and everybody else won too. No, you only got this money because somebody else had to lose it, and that's just a fact. It had to come out of somebody else's pocket. If you're making a profit, it has to come out of somebody's pocket. There's no free $1 billion. Oh, I made $1 billion, and I didn't hurt a fly. No, you hurt some flies. You had to way overcharge some flies. Some flies got really screwed, because that's the only way you can have it. Because it's all stuff, and there's almost so much stuff in the world, right? We all know that, right? There's only so many fish in the sea, kind of thing. And so, if you're going to have stuff, you have to take it out of somebody else's net. Say if all the fish are in somebody's net right now, you can sort of know that if I'm going to have more fish, where am I going to get them? I have to go take them from somebody else who has fish, right? There's no other place to get the fish. Come on, this isn't that complicated. You know. But the modern mystic will have you think, oh, this is way too complex. Nobody can understand any of this. So anyway, the Federal Reserve, so this is what was in the Federal Reserve. You know, Bank A had this much money, and Bank B, and Bank C, and Bank D, and ... And they all had this amount of money, and the little chart would go up for one bank and go down for the other bank, right? It's all, the cash just moves between the banks. That's all. Just moves between the banks. And so... Again, so the way they would do quantitative easing is they would tell the banks, I'm increasing your reserve requirements, which means you can have less money in your accounts with the Fed. So that means you can take money out of these accounts. So say Bank A had $20 billion in there as a reserve, and they say, well, now you only have to have $15 billion. And so that means they could take the $5 billion and lend it to somebody, because they couldn't lend any more money because they were down to the reserve number. So that's how it worked. And that worked in the 80s, for example, in the 90s. But now, it don't work. You're already so low, it doesn't matter. And the lie is that anybody wants to borrow the money anyway. It just isn't, there isn't any market for the money, except the people who don't have any money and are just trying to steal it. You know, nobody honest needs the loan anymore, frankly. Nobody honest has a problem getting a loan. There's plenty of lenders. So it's not that there isn't enough money to lend. These reserve numbers aren't even a problem for the bank. They're probably at 25%. Who knows what number they're actually at. They don't care, because it's more fun to buy stock than it is to lend money to people anyway, because the market just keeps going up. Anyway, so, you know, you're a loser. You know, if you're getting 5% on your money, you're a loser. In the fun Roaring Twenties, that's what the Roaring Twenties were. That's when they wrote the song, "Yeah, I'm in the money," you know, and everybody's happy. You know, everything's just so cool because everybody's getting rich, and somehow it doesn't cost anything. It's all free lunch richness. Anyway, so the game completely changed, because what the government did, the Fed, with the agreement of the President of the United States, they came up with this wacky idea. Well, we need to get money in because the stock market's going down, and we have to get money in there to inflate the prices. So this is like an auction, right? And you could, you know, it's like you're selling your paintings at the auction. You're saying, well, I can't go to the auction and bid up the price, so I hire somebody to be a shill and to just bid up the prices, you know. And it's even better if I can give them $1 million and actually pay for some stuff at high prices, because then I'm really going to inflate the prices, right? I'm not just being really clever about pushing the auction price up. I actually am installing more money. So you're going to understand, if 5 people went to an auction and they had $1 billion to spend on paintings, if I show up with a 6th person that got another $1 billion, well, you know that the average price of the paintings, see, there's only 20 paintings for sale, and these people intend on spending their money to buy them. Well, if I add another $1 billion, that's $6 billion. That means the average price per painting goes up. So that little bit of theory is all you need to understand how this. Oh, so all I have to do is somehow, if I can buy some crap off of the market, it doesn't really matter, right? Okay, let's also understand. You can see that, right? that the market is all the markets. So oil is a market, food is a market, stocks are a market, bonds are a market, gold is a market, but it's all in the same market. So if one guy sells one thing, he can likely buy one of the others. So the money always stays in this circle. Nobody gets out of the market, so to speak. Okay, very few people ever sell unless they're going broke. They don't sell something and then just put the money in the bank. They sell something and to buy something else. So they move the money from one place to another, but they don't inject more in. Now that's this catch. So the agreement was with the Fed, the bankers, because they were in big trouble. So this is in the crisis, right, when the banks were all bankrupt. They all had a bunch of bad debt. They all had a bunch of bad shit. So they need something to get the stock market up, or they're all going to be bankrupt. You had to get those prices back up, because they couldn't sell their stock at the low price, because then they have to admit they lost the money, and they're all leveraged, so how much they lose goes way the hell up. So they had to get the stock prices back up. So what they did is they made an agreement with the banks. They just said, look, we'll put $1 trillion in here, all right, in your account. You write a check, okay, and buy one of these pieces of crap off the market. So you buy a big hunk of this. Now they bought bonds, but it wouldn't matter what they bought. It wouldn't matter whether they bought stocks or any of this crap. It doesn't matter which one they buy. When they buy it off somebody, that somebody gets the $1 trillion, right? So here's a guy who owns the bond, let's say, and he's sitting there, and I give him $1 trillion, right? I give him the bank check, right? What's he going to do with it? Well, he's going to take the check, and he's going to, so he sold his bond, so I have the bond, and he's got the $1 trillion. And what's he going to do with it? He's going to buy something else off the market. So now he's going to take that money and just put it right the hell in the market, right? Now, if I don't put this bond in this pie, right? If I took that, when I got the bond, I didn't put it back up for sale. I just took it home. Okay, it's off the market now, right? Then all that happened was this new asset, this new money, is now bidding on fewer items. See, I took a little piece of the pie and I took it out of the market, and then I put $1 trillion into the market. So obviously all the other stuff now will go up in price, including the most important one, again, the stock market. Because that's all the Fed's there for, is to feed the rich, to feed the stock market. That's all it's doing with this crap. So anyway, so they did this, they put $1 trillion in. They do it another time, trillion more, trillion more, trillion more, trillion more. So now it's $6 trillion. Probably going to go to 7, but before this is over. And it's real debt, okay, in the sense that the government is just telling the banks that, yes, your money's in your account, but you can't spend it. See, if the banks spend the money, then the $1 trillion goes into circulation, and wherever I had a chart for the, yeah, so we'll just eliminate this one. The currency, the amount of currency in circulation is only $2 trillion. So you can understand, if they let this $6 trillion out, that's 3 times more, doubling 100%. That's 300% more, cash in circulation. That means all your dollars are only worth 33 cents. As pure logic, that's what's going to happen. So they can't let this stuff out of here. No chance. $6 trillion worth of, because it only can leave the Federal Reserve as cash. You can only leave these vaults as cash, as money, printed money, money that goes into a bank and gets put across the table. I mean, it's only cash that comes out of the Federal Reserve. Only cash can go in, only cash can go out. That was the rule before 2009. Now the rule is the federal government can put IOUs in here. I owe you $1 trillion. I owe you $2 trillion. And the trillion just means that bond we bought, okay, they told the banks, float the check, buy crap off the market. The guy who you bought it from is going to buy another piece of market. He'll buy another bond, inflating the price. The market goes up $1 trillion worth because you put a new $1 trillion into the economy. Now, it's not a real trillion. It didn't go into anything called the economy. It just went into the price of bonds and stocks, and all this stuff goes up. That's all it went into. It kept all their lines going the right way. Kept them going up, 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 up. Make rich people richer. But it's clearly made out of debt, because this money can't leave. So the only way this goes down is the government has to take in taxpayer dollars, a whole bunch of them, $6 trillion worth of them, and has to actually buy the bond back onto the market. So that's the only way it can go back. That's the only way this number goes down. We have to give the bank the $1 trillion. See, we never gave them the money. They just wrote the check, and we're just saying, okay, your check is sitting here, but you can't cash this, okay? This isn't real money. You can't use it, all right? And we have to eliminate this money in what they paid, their check. We have to wipe their check out by actually collecting tax dollars and getting rid of these debts. So this is all debt in the Federal Reserve now. So it's the one tiny little bit of line is still the bank's money. But the rest of the stuff, well, I should have just done this line. That's the bank's money, this little bit. The rest, all of this, and all of this, and all of this, is debt. The federal government owes the banks $6 trillion. The banks wrote $6 trillion worth of checks. The federal government's on the hook to make those go away. The only way those checks go away is the federal government has to buy them away. And the only way it can do that is to tax people. It increases taxes, guess what? That means the rich aren't as rich. That pulls money out of here. Taxes pull money out of this pie. And when it pulls money out of the pie, the stock market goes down. See, so those are the simple rules. Debt makes the stock market go up. Paying your bills makes the stock market go down. That's the simple rule they figured out. And so they're just playing the system. They're just feeding it more debt when it starts to go down, and they never pay it back when it goes up. So there'll never be a good enough day to crash the market by actually paying our credit card bill. They'll never pay the bill back, because paying the bill back means this. So it'll never happen. And so you have this debt just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And where does it go? Right into their pie. It doesn't go into your buying power. It doesn't go into you buying more stuff at the store. It doesn't make you richer at all. It just makes the rich richer. The 2% get richer. The rest of the people, screw you. You got debt. You got their debt. They got the wealth. And that's all that happens. That's all QE is now. It has nothing to do with stimulating the economy. It has everything to do with inflating commodity prices. That's it. Inflate the commodity prices. Inflate the commodity prices. Make the rich richer. Or more precisely, restore them. Okay, they lost their money in Las Vegas. Give them their money back with an IOU out of the American people's pocket. Taxes. The only way to get rid of all of this debt is to tax somebody. And every year they're figuring out ways to tax the rich less and tax the working class more. Every year it gets worse. Since Reagan, the fees the rich pay goes down, the amount the working class pays goes up. That's the system. That's what you're voting for. You're voting to get screwed, if you're a working person. And you think these guys are out to save you. They're not saving you. They're out to save the 2% who are their friends that they go to parties with and have nice little whatever, Key Largo, blah, 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 parties and whatnot, and all kinds of debaucheries in foreign countries and whatnot. That's all they care about. They don't care about you. They don't care about the economy. They just care about rich people being richer and having more claims on more stuff and being indestructible. Beyond, you can never make me poor because I'm so stinking rich. That's all it is. There is no quantitative easing. It's just stock market relief. It's the stock market relief program. So when you hear QE or you hear stimulus, it's just stock market relief fund on the way. Helicopter money to the rich. And this silly story that he tells is just that. It's a silly story. All right, so let's go to this comment. I mean, I made it so simple here. All right, suppose the Fed gave me $1 trillion in new printed cash. Now, it would never give me cash, right? Because that would go into the economy and you would devalue cash. Just $1 trillion in cash would ruin cash. Okay, so, but obviously I'm just saying in Federal Reserve notes. And I bought $1 trillion in some commodity on the open market. Right, so I go on the market, and now I have a new $1 trillion to throw into the market. You know, all the regular bidders are all there. I'm the new bidder in town. I'm obviously going to increase the prices of everything because I'm going to be bidding on stuff, and I'm going to increase the demand. Increase demand, the supply price goes up. Okay, not someone else. Now somebody else has my $1 trillion, right? So I bought something from somebody else. He has $1 trillion now. What's he going to do with $1 trillion? Put it in his mattress? No, he's going to go buy oil, or he's going to buy stock. All right, someone else, and so on and so on. The obvious consequence, commodity prices go up. Now, there's no disputing that. So Mystic didn't say nothing. I wasted my time printing this crap, writing it, because he just pays no attention. This is the obvious circumstance. The obvious consequence of me injecting $1 trillion of bidding money onto the bond market is the bonds price go up. I mean, the discount goes up. That is, interest rates go down. All right. Most specifically, the stock market. And that's the real game. The only one that really matters to them is the stock market. And they know that if a guy sells his bond and he doesn't want to buy a new one, he's going to buy stock. All right. That is all QE is now. So quantitative easing has nothing to do with interest rates. It doesn't have anything to do with reserve requirements. It doesn't have anything to do with loaning money. It just has to do with bubbling the market. The only thing being fed is the rich. You know, fed joke. Nice joke, I thought. And so this Ricardo guy answers with gibberish. As the U.S. Treasury, you either need to issue a $1 trillion bond. No, I give you a perfectly reasonable thought experiment. The Federal Reserve is now full of trillions of dollars. Where did they come from? They're freaking IOUs. They're just money, okay? They're not in any form. It's in the form of cash, essentially. All right. SDR certificate or gold certificate to the Fed. No, it's only cash in the Fed. That's where the money is. That's where the money was inflated. Okay. That's where it still is, as stated. For them to give you $1 trillion cash. So more nonsense. The Fed didn't go through any of that process to increase the money in the Federal Reserve account. It just increases it. And then it just told the banks, buy this with it. Buy a bond right now. Take that $1 trillion, buy a bond. Just like just handing the money to me. The Fed could have given me the money and told me to buy $1 trillion worth of U.S. bonds. And it would have been exactly the same result. Exactly. So I gave you a perfect thought experiment that's exactly the same as what's actually happening. And you didn't play along at all. That is basically Fed balance sheet. The Fed never just gave anyone cash without balancing it out. I'm just pointing out how that's exactly what QE is. When they put $1 trillion in that reserve account, why is it there? It's there because the bank purchased $1 trillion worth of bonds with their bullshit check. With a check that has nothing behind it except the bank wrote the check. That's the only way it was done. So it's exactly the same as just giving the $1 trillion to a human being and saying, buy it. There's no difference. The bank is just being there to buy it. Just to do what it's been instructed to do, is buy something with the federal government's IOU. Okay. As for the banks, they might get the Fed cash by swapping it for EFTFs and ABSs. So this is all bullshit between swaps between banks. It just has to do with how they, when the reserve numbers go down a little bit and they get too little money in their accounts, they make a deal with another bank to just lend them $1 million for 2 days and some other kind of horseshit. This has nothing to do with that. It's a simple mechanism. The federal government tells the banks buy, and they just really technically never pay for it. They just hold the check in the Federal Reserve. They keep the check in the Federal Reserve. They never cash the check. So they bought something without ever having to cash a check. That's why it's still in the Federal Reserve, because the cash never went out. Okay. Of course, how they value the balancing out might be open for debate. Exactly. The check is still in the Federal Reserve. That's why the $1 trillion is in the reserve account. It's because essentially the check is still in the Federal Reserve. It was never balanced out. The cash wasn't given to the bank because the bank never spent any money. The bank just wrote a check. The bank didn't have to give cash to buy the bond. So cash never got out of the Federal Reserve. But clearly the IOU from the federal government is still in the Federal Reserve. They still have to produce that cash to the bank someday, technically. But technically they can't allow that day to happen, so they have to balance the check with real cash eventually. Okay. So I point out, so you think the $6 trillion in the Fed is the bank's money to use as they like. The clear evidence is once the money goes into the Fed, so the line goes from here, right, and then the line shoots up here and is now up here. I mean, it has a couple of plateaus in it. Let me just be more accurate. The truth is, it never goes down. It's not, obviously not the bank's money. If it was the bank's money, they'd be saying, give me that money, man, I can go buy some stock. Why would the banks keep $6 trillion in their vault, okay, when they know they can buy stock and get at least 10%? A mutual fund can pay them 10% on in a good year. A mutual fund. But right now they could buy oil at $15 a barrel, for fuck's sake. They got $6 trillion. I mean, damn, they could make a killing. I mean, even if one bank had like 1 trillion of this, was controlling 1 trillion of it, you could just imagine that Chase Manhattan or something would take that 1 trillion and just buy oil at $15, and they're buying enough oil that the price will end up being $30. They'll make money just by buying. Anyway, I say 5.5 trillion is cash, quote unquote. It's reserve notes that'll never leave the reserve, that the Fed gave to the banks to buy up the market. So they gave them the money to buy crap off the market and make the auction prices go up. Okay, and the money will never, in capital letters, leave the Fed, and it'll never leave the Fed. The money's never going out into circulation because that's hyperinflation. That means you've destroyed cash's value, and nobody's going to like that. And as soon as there's even a smell that that's happening, everybody's going to dump their bonds. They're going to dump everything because they'll know inflation's going to kill it. So they're only going to buy wheat and corn and all the other stuff that'll go up. They're not going to buy any of the crap that can go down. So all the debt paper, everybody will get rid of it. And you'll have so much debt dumped on the market that nobody will be able to pay back any of that debt, and that's when you have the run on the cash bank. So that'll be doom. So they can't possibly let the money ever out of the Federal Reserve because that means you printed the cash. You can't print the cash. You can't solve the government's financial problems by printing cash. That's what third world nations do. That's what got Germany into trouble. I mean, it wasn't Germany's fault, right? The 20s problem or whatever. Whatever it was, 1919, whatever the whole... Anyway, the problem was they had these huge, after the war, after World War I, they got screwed, okay, and told they have to pay all these punitive damages, and they had nowhere to get it from. They couldn't tax the people to make the money. They couldn't do it. So they had to just print German cash and give them printed German cash because they had no other way to pay it. And of course that German cash came back into Germany again and diluted all the cash in Germany and just ruined their economy. But that's the prescription. That's what the rules are. There's nothing else to talk about here. This is not that complicated. We are shilling the markets. We're just going into the markets, buying stuff, inflating the cost of them by appearing to buy stuff. But we're not, I don't even know how to say it. It's such a fraud. We've taken our bonds and we're hiding them in the vault. They're still IOUs. We owe the money. It's $1 trillion liability. It's not $1 trillion asset to the federal government. Putting its expired, its credit card, right? It has a credit card and it's expired. Just putting it over there doesn't fix the problem. Doesn't mean you paid it back. Oh, I bought it off the market. Well, you didn't pay it. So you didn't buy it off the market. You bought it off the visible market. But it's still your liability. It's your IOU. You still have to pay it. You didn't honestly buy it. You dishonestly bought it. I don't even know how to even say it. I mean, metaphor it even more visually. But we've just inflated the price of the market by taking stuff off the market in a completely illegitimate way. We've snuck in and pulled a couple of paintings out of the collection of paintings. And now the paintings are going to sell for more because there's fewer of them. All right. The concept is so simple, so rudimentary, such an easy con to understand. The con is so easy to understand. I really shouldn't get any argument on this. That's the racket. They don't, the banksters know. It's perfectly clear, I mean, that they've told Trump and they've told everybody else, you know, the economic people, yeah, this Federal Reserve money doesn't have anything to do with making more loans. Okay, we're not pumping up the accounts so the banks feel like they're richer and now can make more loans. It has nothing to do with making loans. It has to do with buying crap off the market. Get the crap off the market. Just like when they bought Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. They bought the bad assets off the market so the rich people could be rich again. Just when they used the FDIC insurance to insure a bunch of junk bonds the rich people owned and they were going to go broke. And the government came in and said, no, we'll give you full value. We'll guarantee it with FDIC insurance. So even though it's a piece of shit, even though you couldn't sell it for what its face value is, even though it's an absolute piece of crap as a piece of paper, the government guaranteed it and said, no, it's worth $100. When it's worth nothing. And they used the FDIC insurance fund as the liable entity. And so now it's liable to make good assets that are complete crap. The rich lost their money at Las Vegas and we just gave it back to them. Free ride. I mean, it's so overt theft. And you have to have an argument with an intelligent person about this simple dynamic. This doesn't make any sense. And it just has to do with they want to believe. They want to believe in the free lunch. I made money in the market and it didn't cost anybody anything. I earned it. I didn't steal it from some other sucker. Yeah. I didn't make him poorer to make me richer. That delusion. Alright. They just want to live in their little delusion that they're harmless little rich people. And they're not harmless at all. They will kill you eventually. They're like fucking worms. You know, just infest you and you get used to it for a while, but eventually they're going to hit something important and you're going to bleed out. Just wake up and smell the shenanigans, for fuck's sake. I mean, he talks like these people know what they're doing and there's professionals and they really are trying to save the economy. No, they're trying to save the rich.